Today's episode of Data Driven is brought to you by Audible. Get a free audiobook download and 30-day free trial at audibletrial.com/datadriven.
Hello and welcome to Data Driven, the podcast where we explore the emerging field of data science. We bring the best minds in data, software engineering, machine learning, and artificial intelligence. Now here are your hosts, Frank Lavinia and Andy Leonard.
Hello and welcome back to Data Driven, the podcast where we explore the emerging fields of data science, machine learning, and artificial intelligence. If you think of data as the new oil, well, you can consider us Car Talk because we focus on where the rubber meets the virtual road. With me, as always, on this epic road trip through this new and exciting field is Andy Leonard. How you doing, Andy?
I'm doing well, Frank. How are you today?
I'm doing fantastic. I'm writing a white paper
Awesome.
about for a company that is, I think, about to blow up. They're European based, and they're about to, I think, just go crazy here when they make more of a push to the U.S. market.
Okay. That sounds exciting.
It is exciting. It's exciting to be on the main nerve, so to speak, of what's going on, and I'm still getting a lot of positive feedback from my talk at Data Intelligence.
Nice.
Which is awesome and good for the ego.
Yes.
And did you hear about my analogy of Legos versus bento boxes?
I don't think I did.
So the idea was I was comparing a Azure ML versus AWS ML.
Right.
And the offerings of Azure is more like a bento box. You have nice things organized, and you have everything ready for you to eat. Whereas AWS has the philosophical approach of more Lego pieces, where you can build whatever you want, but you got to build it, and it really meshes nicely with the historical approach that Linux or Unix has taken, where you kind of assemble pieces together.
Sure.
Whereas the Windows approach is, productivity right away.
Right.
And not one is, and at the talk, people said, well, which is better? I was like, well, I'm going to give the typical consultant answer, and that is, it depends.
It depends. That's right.
Instant productivity is good for business. Infinite flexibility is not good for business.
True.
Infinite flexibility is awesome for engineering.
That's true.
But it all depends on your, what you want to do and what you're trying to accomplish. So, but the title of the talk was Machine Learning Melee, AWS versus Azure. And in this bout, it's safe to say that Azure wins. Which I'm sure we have some people on the line that are probably ecstatic to hear that news.
I bet so. I'm excited to have our current guest on today. We've interviewed people, Frank, already that we consider heroes in our field, and we haven't put out 10 podcasts yet. So, Mr. Hathi, Kamal Hathi, is one of my heroes. I started interacting with him about a dozen years ago when I was working on my very first book project. It was a ROCS book, SSIS 2005 Integration Services, and he was one of the people working with SSIS as they were trying to bring it to market. And he put out some early videos that had some fantastic demos. And I was looking for demos to write about. And I sent him an email and said, could I write about the demos that you've put together? And he was most gracious. He granted me permission to do so. And I was able to deliver my couple chapters in the book and not get fired off the writer team. So I owe you a debt of gratitude and some thanks for that. You helped start my writing career, and I greatly appreciate that. I want to read your part of your bio here. It's on LinkedIn. You're the engineering product executive now with a track record of delivering industry-changing software and cloud service products. Co-founder of Microsoft's multi-billion-dollar analytics and business intelligence products, experienced in successfully managing large in parentheses, multi-hundred engineers teams to bootstrapping startup efforts. And you're currently the general manager for Microsoft's Power BI business, and you help deliver Power BI to market, are responsible for end-to-end strategy, design, and engineering. And that's where I last saw you, was at the Data Insights Summit, which we're recording this on June 27th. And that was a couple of weeks ago, the Data Insights Summit. I'd like to welcome you, Kamal Hathi, to the show.
Hey, so Andy, thank you so much. First of all, I mean, you're making me blush with all these praises and heaps of, thanking me for all kinds of things. But, I have to tell you that, indeed, what you do is what makes our products and our industry work. And so in some senses, you guys are my heroes. And I'm really, really honored to be on this podcast and hopefully have a great conversation with you. So thanks again for having me, and look forward to our chat.
Very cool. Thank you for being here. Yes, it's awesome. Frank, why don't you jump in? I know you have a ton of questions.
So I'll say this. I mean, one of the things I remember, this would have been 2004, 2005, when I was at a small Microsoft shop in Richmond. It was about the time I met Andy, actually, down in Richmond. And they said that they wanted to create kind of a BI practice. And one of the early discussions was, should it be a Microsoft BI practice or kind of a generic BI practice? And, a lot of the debate was settled around, how big is Microsoft in this space and how committed are they to this space? So, you can kind of look back. Now it's funny to look back, 12, 13 years later and say, well, they really were committed. And I would imagine, the work that you've done has played probably a big role in a lot of the products we've seen come out.
Yeah, so I mean, as you said, we've been in this space for a while, and literally, for 2 decades, the approach we've had and the philosophical push that Microsoft has around BI, on data insights, call it what you want, analytics, has been this notion of democratization. Sometimes we call it BI for the masses. Sounds kind of weird. And BI for everyone. Democratization of insights. Call it what you want. There's only been one overarching goal, which is to make sure that everyone, every single person in an organization, no matter who they are, from the CEO all the way to the guy in the shop floor to the guy who drives the trucks around, everyone can benefit from data and get insights super easily without having to be a sophisticated data scientist or without having to be some kind of a developer or even, in some senses, an Excel jockey. How do you get everyone to get insights on data and make decisions based on that? So that's been sort of the driving piece. This notion of data being transformative. And that's what we've used over the years again and again. And we built up a very solid foundation, technical foundation with our products over the years. And with Power BI, the version that we released a couple of years ago, it really has come to fruition. We really have a product that is very easy to get started with. It allows anyone. You don't have to be super technical to get value out of it very quickly. In fact, what we talk about in the design ethic that we use for Power BI is what we sometimes call the 5x5. And the 5x5 breaks down to the following. It means 5 seconds to sign up, which means in 5 seconds, we want you to be able to go to powerbi.com, click Get Started, and literally be able to get the product. And then 5 minutes to wow, which means within 5 minutes of getting the product, we would like you to be able to connect to data that's relevant to you and literally hear you say, wow. And so this 5x5, 5 seconds to sign up, 5 minutes to wow, has been the driving design principle behind Power BI. And we actually have seen this working. We've seen Power BI grow organically like crazy. It's been a rapid acceleration of adoption. We see lots of people using it. But more than anything else, it's not just about people signing up and using the product or downloading it. But what we've seen is this, organic community that loves the product. It's been just this fantastic growth of users, working together, working with us, giving us feedback, And we continuously listen to this feedback, and we release Power BI literally every week as an update to the service, and every month we update our desktop product. So it's something that's built with close cooperation with our user base, and a user base that loves the product. It's something that they really have a stake in, and they keep us honest. They help us build something that they love. In return, we love what they build for us. And you mentioned the Data Insight Summit a bit ago, which was our user conference, and that's a great example. It was a celebration, literally a joyous celebration of thousands of people coming together and just having a good time because they all use Power BI, they love the product, and they give us feedback and make us the product even more interesting and useful for them. And for us, it just, and me personally, this is something that keeps us enthused, happy, just raring to go work on it. And it's extremely gratifying to be able to have something that is being used so much and, more importantly, loved so much by our community of users.
And I will say that, I mean, you mentioned kind of the Excel jockeys, and I would posit that this theory, and Andy, Kamal, you can let me know if I'm wrong. I think Excel jockeys run the world.
Absolutely.
I mean, Excel. It is the most widely deployed CRM, XRM, database in the world, and Excel jockeys totally run the world. Whether you're on Wall Street or Main Street, I mean, so much is done through Excel. And I would say the strategy you had of kind of, when I first started looking at Power BI, I was kind of like, well, what is this? And I was kind of like, this is like, this is kind of like Excel. I mean, by mapping it some of the UX to feel like Excel, I think was probably the most brilliant move ever, because there's so many Excel jockeys. They have their hands in so much data, and unlike kind of the typical DBA or developer, the analysts, they have their hands dirty in the data. They know it, they feel it, and that was brilliant.
Yeah. So we sometimes talk about Power BI as the PowerPoint for data. And the analogy between Excel and Power BI is somewhat similar to Word and PowerPoint. Very familiar, very similar. The same audiences can use it. In fact, you go back and forth between the two things. You might create some detailed stuff, in a word processor, and then use presentation via slides. And you can think about the same idea with Power BI and Excel. Excel is, if you use Excel, Power BI is instantly familiar. In fact, some of the technologies are shared between the two things. The data mashup story that we use in Power BI, the get data parts in the desktop, is essentially the Power Query technology that's in the data tab of Excel. So if you know one, you know the other instantly. There's no confusion. If you use Power Pivot in Excel, the data modeling environment in the Power BI desktop is instantly familiar. The same DAX language. If you use Excel macros, then DAX is instantly familiar to you. And all across, it is, as you rightly said, geared towards leveraging that familiarity and making sure that people, once again, can easily and quickly start without learning new metaphors and new ways of working, and they just leverage what they know really well. And as you said, Excel is something that everybody knows, no matter who you are, literally across the world. Excel is a universal tool. And Power BI works very closely with Excel, hand in glove, and it leverages all the benefits that you get in Excel right in Power BI.
Yeah, that's one of the things I've said a couple of times on the show already, that one of the things I think Microsoft doesn't get very much credit for technically, and it certainly doesn't show up in the stock price, is how well the company puts out products that are integrated. And what I mean by that is, if you learn how to do a function in Excel, as you said, if you're leveraging DAX, now you can just port that right over to Power BI. And it's not that it looks the same, it is the same. So you're leveraging that experience, and that's no small thing. And I'm sure it doesn't happen by accident.
Yeah. I mean, look, you're right. Again, because we worked so closely together, the journey I described over 2 decades, it's been a very close journey with the Excel guys and us in what we call the BI group at Microsoft, working together. I think it's super important also to understand that we enhance, all the benefits you get in a tool like Excel with Power BI. There are many things that we do, and we can touch upon these. But for one, there are a number of interesting capabilities that no other tool inside or even outside of Microsoft, our competitors don't do. And you can break these down into sort of 3 or 4 different things. The one is around just how easily we have, organically from the ground up built in things like machine learning, AI. These are, natural language processing. These are a native part of Power BI. These are not added on top because it's a new fashion that you go and do. But it's real. Power BI was built in a modern age, and it's a modern tool. And so the modern capabilities that you expect, things such as having an AI assistant kind of built in, and having the ability to work with things like Cortana, being able to use natural language, these are all natively part of Power BI. So it's one really important sort of differentiator and interesting thing that we provide. That I don't think any other tool, especially our competitors, do not provide for sure.
Yeah, and I will extend Andy's awe on that in terms of your integration between other products. Like you said, having Cortana and kind of the natural language processing, that's not trivial to add that to a product and do it in a way that is, as people get more familiar with using natural language processing and Cortana elsewhere in Windows, where they're just going to be able to naturally do it in Power BI. That is awesome. Yeah. I will fanboy out,
Well,
for a minute. But it's incredible, and it really speaks to kind of, the focus on integration.
Well, and I think the other part it talks to is focusing on, transparently being able to use these kind of technologies without knowing what the tool even is. If you go to Cortana and you ask a question about, your sales forecast or whatever, and you get a Power BI visual pop up, you may not even know it's Power BI. And just the pure act that somebody created a data model and made a report, now the benefit is to so many other people across the organization who don't even need to worry about spelling BI. Like, they don't even know what they're doing. Just asked a question, they got an answer. And that is true, democratization, transparency, this notion of data culture. That's when you really get to reaching the masses, as opposed to, people learning sophisticated tools, which is also important, of course, to go create these reports and analysis. But we make it super transparent and easy to get at the information because you use, tools like Cortana or just writing expressions in English to get the answers that you need.
I was just going to say, I certainly agree with everything you said there. And one of the things I find most impressive, and I think you've alluded to it a couple of times already, is that get insights function built right into Power BI. That boggles my mind.
Yeah, that thing is actually another example of, Microsoft and working inside Microsoft in a way that helps our users leverage all the investments we make elsewhere. So we have a very big research group called Microsoft Research, and these guys are like, I don't know, they're super duper over the moon smart people, PhDs, researchers, world class, inventors of technology, and we work with them closely to see what we can take from their labs and put into Power BI. And so an example of that is what you alluded to, this capability called Quick Insights. And Quick Insights basically runs across your data and finds insights for you. It suggests things you should look at which you may not have. And it's in 2 different ways. One is, if you are an end user and you are just browsing data and you say, hey, give me some insights, and this thing will run and give you all kinds of ideas about different kinds of charts and graphs and visuals and outliers and things you may not even thought about. And the other way it's working, and we are about to release this in the coming weeks, is, and we showed this at the Data Insight Summit, allowing analysts to look at a graph or a chart and then be able to ask, what happened here? Why did this line chart dip? Why did this chart go up? What changed? What is the difference? Things that you ask yourself, say, hey, what happened here? And then the AI kicks in and finds all kinds of interesting suggestions. And I've been floored personally myself by finding insights that we didn't know even existed. Literally, we've found, things like our user voice, where people vote for, what features they want to work on. We have found, examples of ballot stuffing, if you will, one single IP address giving us lots and lots of votes on the same thing. You would never have found this if you hadn't run quick insights on it and looked at the graph and said, wow, why is this curve just shot up? And then this thing comes up and gives us answers. So it fundamentally changes, what it means to work with data, where you can focus on, your adding value on it, as opposed to, trying to examine every nitty-gritty pieces of the nitty-gritty of the pieces, and trying to get the answers yourself.
It reminds me very much of kind of the Star Trek, where they ask the computer, what if, we ran this scenario, or, what happened there, and they kind of drive into that detail.
Yeah.
And
I'm a great Star Trek fan, so I'm tempted to pick up my mouse and say computer. But can't quite do that. It's not quite, obviously Star Trek, but the idea is similar, which is that, the computer is an assistant. It helps you find information. It helps you, make analysis, as opposed to somehow being an overlord that tells you what to do. And I think that is the key, is that, we use AI almost as assistive intelligence as opposed to artificial intelligence. And it provides assistance required to make sense out of your data. And we do it, all over the place in PowerBI, and you'll see more and more of this coming out.
And this is the point in the show where we thank our sponsors who make Data Driven possible. On Data Driven, we talk a lot about data science, machine learning, and artificial intelligence. But did you know the hardest part of any data science related project is data integration? Data scientists often call data integration data wrangling, or the icky word munging. But it's all about making sure the analytics engine that you're using has valid and clean data. Enterprise Data and Analytics specializes in data integration and can help your enterprise build better data integration solutions faster with best practices and automation. Enterprise Data and Analytics offers training and consulting services for SQL Server Integration Services, SSIS, and Business Intelligence Markup Language, or BIML. Visit entdna.com to learn more. Enterprise Data and Analytics. Data, it's in their DNA.
Wow, I love that term, assistive intelligence. It kind of, when you were saying that, it created this image in my mind of like the augmented reality that we see in Pokemon.
Yeah.
And I see that sort of, I see that as way more valuable than, say, just a pure VR environment, especially when it comes to data. And I kind of think that's where it's going. But I also see the text-based versions of that, along with augmented with voice, into Cortana intelligence, and that's mind-boggling. It's like a competitor. I won't mention the name, except Cortana really talks when you ask her questions. There's not an actor.
Yeah.
So, that's fantastic, though. So, like Frank, I'm having a bit of a fanboy moment too. Very impressed with it, and it's been very interesting being out here on the outside, and of course I keep up with the news. But what I've seen is all of the Azure offerings, especially those focused on data science, have from the outside looking in, they appear to be accelerating.
Yeah. I mean, look, the approach we take is one of iteratively building the product, and it's really important. If you go off and go to the legacy or old style of building software, people would go off for a couple of years, maybe more, and they would build software which they think what the customers want is right for them. And then they would release it and then hope that the right things come out. In this iterative approach, we release every week, literally every day almost, and we listen to feedback on that constant basis. And because we are able to listen and react on nearly weekly, monthly basis, the product can evolve based on that feedback. And what happens is the product is refined and honed right for exactly what people want. And so we can make it even better. And as you make it better, we get more feedback. And we just sort of get in this virtuous cycle, this positive feedback loop that keeps making releases better and faster and more relevant. And so we accelerate what we do based on the feedback. And once you know exactly what users want and exactly what needs to change, you can actually make changes that are very, very focused and pointed, and do so quickly, as opposed to generically building things that take for a long, long time to do. And so that's the one of the reasons why you see this acceleration phenomena coming out of Redmond on these things and out of other parts of Microsoft. The other part, of course, is this is the new Microsoft. The new Microsoft is one that is this lean, mean, agile, fast sprinting entity that knows how to compete in a world that is moving extremely fast. And we've sort of figured out how to do this and do it sustainably at quality at a massive, incredible cloud scale that nobody else can even match in some senses. And because we have these things in place, we can move even faster. And the bigger scale you have, the faster you can move. And this whole thing just gets into this interesting loop that we're in, where I think you'll see things accelerate even more, yet continue to provide value at high quality.
That is really outstanding. And one of the things that I can hear, and I hope our listeners can hear as well, is your passion. And I always admired your passion. When I first heard you presenting on SSIS, I think it was one of the things that attracted me to the demos that you presented on that. And it's just incredible to see, to see and hear that you're using Power BI to do things like mine user voice, not just to look for anomalies where somebody's trying to stuff the ballot box, but I've personally witnessed changes suggested, and then I've seen those turn around within a week or two and show up in the product. And that's just incredible. And now, one more thing I'd like to add to that is you've got almost a constant beta running. So you can turn on the experimental features in Power BI Desktop anytime you'd like, and just start playing around with what's being worked on for the next version. That's incredible.
Yeah. I mean, again, this is how, to your point about acceleration, we can move fast, because having people use these experimental or beta or preview features is the only way we can be sure what we're building is actually right. And in the end, right is only right as long as customers like it and believe it solves the problem. Otherwise, it has no meaning. You can build anything you want, make it as fancy as you want. Nobody uses it. It's no use. And so, to the point about using Power BI, we are data driven. I mean, absolutely, totally, completely data driven. Every day, literally, we sit in every hour almost, I would say, not every minute, we're looking at data that's coming in on all kinds of things. What is being used, what is working, what is not working, how is the performance of the system, what features are seeing an uptick or a downtick, how many users are coming to the system, how many are leaving. We ask feedback on what we call a net promoter score, saying, hey, would you recommend this product to your friends? And we listen very closely to what the feedback is. And it's all data. So opinions are important, but ultimately what matters is looking at the data, getting the insights, and then building a product based on that feedback and the data that comes out of it.
Right. And I love the fact you said data-driven.
Yeah.
Andy, someone should come on the podcast with that name.
Someone should. Yeah, that'd be an awesome name. Yeah.
I bet you got some data and then figured out that data-driven is a great name to have.
Exactly. And we've actually fed through some of our statistics through Excel and Power BI to kind of figure out.
Yeah, I saw that word cloud. Yeah, cool.
Yeah, so we are very data driven at Data Driven.
That's good.
Yeah. But I would say I can also hear the passion in your voice, and I would imagine that the real time kind of communication you have with your user base, I think, fuels that passion.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, this is, I live for this. I mean, this is, I hoping that my management chain is not listening, but I would do this work without getting paid a cent. This is not about anything, career or money and like that. I think I'm the luckiest human being on the planet. I get to work on something that I absolutely love to work on, the users that I love to work with, and actually have an impact on the world out there, because the world is so data driven. Again, shout out to you guys.
Thank you.
But very few people I think are that fortunate, and I certainly am. And for me, this is way beyond passion. This is pretty much what I live for in some ways. I just absolutely love this area and the product.
Well, you will be glad to know, in my previous role at Microsoft, it was my job to evangelize Microsoft products to basically members of Congress and other kind of the set and the Capitol Hill crowd and government. Whenever I showed anything I built in Power BI, there was just instant wow.
Oh, cool.
And when I first started that role, my background was developer evangelist, and that's slightly different. When you're, obviously it's a very different crowd. So one of the things I noticed was, we can show that kind of political decision makers, you can show them the latest and greatest gadgets, right? But when you show them data, but not just data, but actual insights you can pull and explain very simply, they love to drive the news. They don't want to be driven by the news cycle. Yeah. And for the ability for them to extract this data and pull this in, and what made them even more excited is that they already have people on their staff who know Excel.
Yeah.
So to kind of sit down with those individual members and not the actual members of Congress, but their staffers, and for them to be able to be very quickly respond to day-to-day situations and then have data visualizations with data that back up kind of their case for whatever it is they're legislating. It's already impacting the world in a very real way. So that Power BI was always my go-to demo software.
I'm glad you're saying that, because beyond on terms of impact in the world, beyond the business and that environment, we also have been working very closely with large charities. We work with news organizations. Many of the election cycles talking about Congress, both in the United States and abroad, different countries, France, Philippines, other places, have been nationally broadcast using Power BI. The Associated Press uses us to make stories on data. There are counties and local governments that put out data on their citizens using Power BI for public consumption. There are charities that put up data on their charities and their effectiveness in Power BI. So that things of that nature are truly, humbling in some senses. The fact that there are people using our product to communicate to the rest of the world out there about, be it their country, be it their city, be it their charity, how they're impacting other people. And that is, truly, again, very, very gratifying, and really helps us get to, do these kinds of things and make sure that the product, really, really resonates with the world out there.
That is very interesting, very awesome. Kamal, we have some questions that we usually ask as we kind of wind things down a little bit here.
Yeah.
The first one is, did data find you, or did you find data?
That's a good question. I think in some ways data found me. I've been doing work on some form of, machine learning, AI kind of thing for most of my career. And for most part, through college and other places, graduate school, it was always about, the wonder of trying to simulate intelligence, if you will. That's always been sort of thing that I love doing. But at one point, as I was at Microsoft, I bumped into a group here building what was called the OLAP server at that time. And OLAP is Online Analytical Processing. And it was just a fortuitous coincidence in some senses. But once I did that, I got sucked into, the notion of data being the thing that drives decisions, drive insights, as opposed to worrying about algorithms and worrying about, the kinds of things that people do research on. And it really became a drive to go and provide the ability to make insights and decisions on data, and data being the driver for everything. And so data, I guess, found me in the form of this product called OLAP Services. And then from then on, I've been sort of delighted and stuck with working on it on a daily basis.
So we've kind of next question would be we've kind of covered some of this, but what's your favorite part of your current gig?
The fact that I get to build a product that really is impactful and people like and love to use, and the fact that I get to work with customers and users in the community that loves that product. It is just, as I said before, it's extremely gratifying, it's energizing, it's uplifting, and it is something that I look forward to every day. And it is that energy of working with the user base in the community that really, really is absolutely the most exciting and gratifying thing about what I do every day.
Well, that's awesome. We have a complete this sentence. When I'm not working, I enjoy what?
So it's going to sound odd. Maybe it's not. I enjoy practicing karate.
Oh, wow. Okay, so I have
That's
to
cool.
ask, which belt have you reached?
Belts are not that important. I mean, I tell
see.
people, but it's what's called a brown belt
Okay.
with a stripe on it, which means it's whatever. It is what it is. It's a it says I'm an advanced beginner. Put it that way. Karate is something people do for years and years and years. My
Yeah.
teacher's been doing it for 20 odd years. His teacher for 40 odd years.
Wow.
And so I've been doing it for a few years, and but that's what I enjoy karate very much. I do it with my son. We do it together, and it has discipline. It has flexibility. It has got a lot of fun built into it, and it's almost spiritual in nature at times, and so I really enjoy that a lot.
So here's another fill in the blank.
Yeah.
I think the coolest thing in technology is
PowerBI. It's a setup. I mean, you give me this question.
I saw that coming. I did.
We lobbed you a nice little softball there.
I know. But
I mean, it's a fair statement, I think.
Yeah. I mean, I obviously like what I do in my product, and I think it's super cool.
That's funny. Okay, another fill in the blank. Blah. I look forward to the day when I can use technology to
tell me what's important and what I should pay attention to without having to worry about it. So many things happening all the time, and I just look forward to the day when I don't have to worry about remembering things or being told to pay attention to certain things. And in some ways, we do that already with things like Cortana. Even PowerBI does that with alerts and telling people finding insights and outliers. But I just want to be able to forget about the trivia of daily life and just have, an assistant or technology, call it what you want, tell me what to do and when to do it and remind me of things without me having to actively worry about it. And I think my wife would appreciate that very much too. I keep forgetting
I could
stuff.
see that. I'm right there with you.
Yeah.
I'm certain you're not alone on that.
Oh, that and the transporter from Star Trek, but that's a bit far away.
Right. Here's another one. Share something different about yourself, although we do ask you that this is a family podcast and we have our clean rating on iTunes we'd like to keep.
Okay, well, that takes away 6 different things there. Okay. I told you something about, my spare time stuff, which is, karate, and the fact that I'm always have some injury somewhere I'm walking around with. But the other thing that I find that sometimes I like to talk about is, I like the outdoors a lot. I've climbed Mount Kilimanjaro, which is the highest point in Africa, and that was a absolutely amazing experience to go up, in that continent and then go up 20,000 feet and see the world from that point of view.
Oh, wow.
Just, again, hard to describe. But I tell people that I climb and hike, obviously for the fun of it, but also because I like to take pictures. I love photography. And there is no different view you can get than being elevated from the world, maybe above the clouds sometimes, and then taking pictures of where you're at. So that's something, somewhat unusual about me. The other thing I would tell people is, till the age of, I don't know, I would say 13, 14, all my thoughts were in German.
Oh, really?
Yeah, that's kind of weird, isn't it? I as a kid, my dad worked in the embassy. I'm from India, in the Indian embassy in Bonn, West Germany. So I went to elementary school there, and then to middle school, and so I just grew up, not knowing otherwise, to just have this brain that thought in German for a while. So you can imagine this odd confluence of different languages, trying to figure out what to say next.
That's very interesting. Wow. Well, this has been a fantastic show for me. I hope you've enjoyed it, Frank. I certainly hope you, Kamal, have enjoyed being a guest.
I totally enjoyed it. I really love talking to you guys. A lot of fun. Can't imagine that time's passed by so quickly. It's just I'm looking at the clock, and I'm really surprised where we are at.
It's been great for us. Where can people learn more about Power BI?
PowerBI.com.
That's easy.
That's easy, and it's comprehensive. You'll find everything you want. You can try the product in the browser itself. No need to install anything. You'll find training courses there. You'll find videos. You can sign up immediately. You can download. You can find the blog. Everything. One-stop shop. PowerBI.com.
Yeah, it's a great resource. I mean, there's just everything you want to know about it.
Yeah.
And I will say thank you very much, or vielen Dank.
Yeah, bitte. Yeah, so thank you very much. Really enjoyed talking to you guys.
Great, thanks.
Yeah, take care.
Thanks for listening to Data Driven. Don't just listen. Become a data driver by going to datadriven.tv to sign up to join the community, access to special events, tips and tricks, and more. Sign up today at datadriven.tv.